I'm Sheila Vaccaro with Lisa Dorsey and Bernie Flynn. The time is 7:05. This is the call to order. And now item 2, the comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance.
Hello, good evening. My name's Alice Snook. I live on Darlington Street. Thank you for taking time to listen to me this evening. So I'm a parking permit holder for Area B. And I'm on Darlington, so I don't have any off-street parking. So finding a parking spot is always a struggle. But where I can always find parking is right around the corner from me on the 200 block of West Minor Street. Which was added to Area B of the residential parking program in 2015, according to Chapter 77 of the Boroughs Code. However, I have unfortunately found out that during business hours, so 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, on the 200 block of West Minor Street, parking permits, or those folks who have parking permits, they become invalid, and you become subject to ticketing. So I find this to be out of alignment with the residential parking program's legislative intent, which includes the promotion of peace, good order, comfort, convenience, and welfare of the inhabitants of the borough. I don't think it's very convenient to get a ticket when you pay for a permit and then you make sure to park in your designated area, only to find out that you need to move your car every 3 hours when you're just trying to focus on your work. And then there's nowhere left to park near your house in Area B. It's pretty crowded. So the residential parking program also appears to not take into account that ever since March of 2020, many borough residents now work from home, so including myself, and therefore a need for parking during business hours. It doesn't disappear. So I was told by Hector in the parking office to find a petition form online to start a petition, but I've searched with no luck. I only found a PDF on how to add a block to the program. So I've come here, that's my long roundabout story, to say that I've come here to gain insight into the properly accepted procedures for starting a petition to support the residents of parking area B in hopes to increase their parking options.
Alice, I'm going to ask Hector to come up because if you had come to me in an email, I would not have an answer. I would just go to Hector. So let's try.
That's Hector. Hello.
So I think 2 years ago or last year, a resident came to the Borough Council meeting again, and they requested the same thing you're requesting. So Mr. Flynn here informed the resident, start a petition.
Okay.
Person was supposed to knock on the doors on the 20 block of West Minor Street and get a petition, but the person never came back. So, I mean, if you want, I'll give you the petition.
Yes, totally.
I'll tell you, how to go about, getting the number of people that wants to change that restriction from the 3-hour restriction.
Okay.
And the whole thing is that when the 200 block of West Minor went into effect 5 years ago, the residents choose what hours they want. And the residents in that block chose between the hours of 5 and 6 a.m. So if you want to change that petition, you just have to knock on people's doors, get us 75% of the residents that want that, change that restriction.
Okay.
Thank you. It sits squarely in the sweetest word, the borough. The businesses right there, all the lawyers and architects and engineers right there, and the lawyers. Well, the reason why it was put there so they can transfer their clients rather rapidly. The Hector's just went over how to get the parking thing changed through the permits. You got to get a certain number of people, certain percentage.
Yeah.
But if you would like to come down and park, if you want to walk 10 houses and park in the 300 block of West Minor Street, there's no parking permit needed. You're just going to move your car every Wednesday and Thursday. And there's plenty of parking 1 block away for free. There's no permit parking on the 300 block of West Minor. And you can leave your car there and never come out again until Wednesday or Thursday, just flipping back and forth. All right. So it's a daunting task what you got to do. I think the other guy gave up because he had to knock on all the apartment doors and get all the signatures. It may be slightly easier for you to park in 300 block
Okay.
because there's no hassle. We'd love you to come down to our block.
Okay.
All right?
Thanks for that suggestion. So where, like, I guess I know you just mentioned some of the, like, or where's the policy written that says, like, you have to get this percentage of votes? I couldn't find that anywhere.
I'll give it.
You have it?
I'll
Okay.
email you the information tomorrow in the petition. Yes. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Save yourself a lot of hassle. Walk a half a block. When you get frustrated with that, I live with a 313 West Minor.
Okay.
Knock on my door. All right? I'll help you out. I won't even charge you to park.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. We're going to move on to discussion items. Item A is the garage management monthly report.
Good evening, Forrest Freeman with Reef Parking. Hope everybody's doing well. So continuing on July, we actually took a little bit of a dip transient revenue wise. Our monthly parking though has beefed that up. Construction is completed. So for the time being, pressure washing was completed. And we're doing quarterly inspections of the garages right now to make sure that all the little tidbits are looked at. As we look at, the numbers, our transient revenue versus the same month prior year was down about $4,400. And Mr. Metric had actually asked us a question about the volume. And what we believe is there's a combination of different things, but a lot more people are taking vacations this year. So as we're comparing it to last year, July and August, it's just been, vacation after vacation. Not sure if you check your Facebook pages, but I see tons of people on vacation. I also think that last year in July and August, speaking for this month as well, it was that time when people were actually able to get out without going on a vacation. So they were able to come out and have, dinner or lunch or something, in the borough. So that also kind of pumped up the numbers a little bit, both in the garage and on street. But again, I'm sure Mr. Metric will speak more to that. If we look back against 2019, which is kind of our litmus test for how we're seeing things, this month over the same month in 2019, we're up about 21%. So that, which equates to about $37,000, again, kind of all over, whether it's transient, monthly, it's kind of a combination of a number of things. Year to date, we're 6% over 2019. So, and I will say 2019 was a banner year. It was phenomenal pretty much anywhere. So the fact that we're up above that is great. It's showing the recovery that we want to see, and we continue to see those numbers continue on. Nightlife did slow down a little bit, but again, we have that base, that's able to sustain us in the garages. We anticipate traffic, picking back up again as we hit into September, even more so. That's from a parking perspective, just in various cities, we're anticipating that September on is going to not be normal, but it'll be much more normal than it was. So we're anticipating a nice uptick. Expenses, year to date, we're 8,500 unfavorable budget versus prior year. A lot of that comes down to just some equipment repairs, things that we were holding off on last year just because the revenue wasn't where we needed it to be. And also credit card fees. As revenue goes up, credit card fees do, unfortunately, with PCI compliance. If we look at some of the trends, so average revenue, and it's going to be the next two charts, show that, Bicentennial is essentially flat. And, with the revenue collected, Chestnut went up, revenue collected. If we look at tickets, see the same trend. And the interesting one, and it took me a little while to figure this out, is if you go to the last one, which is transient revenue growth, we're seeing a little bit of a dip versus June. Some of that is, again, that, we're looking at, a little bit of a downturn, whereas our averages based upon, 31 days versus 30 days in the previous month, our averages are up a little bit. So revenue wise, we're doing well. It's just, again, a little bit less traffic, and, so we're seeing that little bit of a dip. We'll probably level out for August. And again, we anticipate come September, October, November, December, as things return, as we get some of the, events back that hadn't been here for a while, that will really pick back up again. Any questions, comments? Hunky dory.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And C is the director's report.
Thank you. I'm really excited to do this director's report because I finally get to use all that data that I've been talking about to help us solve some problems. So as Bill's getting it up, getting the report on the screen, we were looking again at our boring spreadsheet of revenue numbers. And I will summarize it as follows, that the borough, again, is trending ahead of its budget on its three big ticket items, parking tickets, meters, and garages. However, the margin on tickets and revenue, parking meters is pretty skinny. Where we're making most of our money right now is, compared to budget, is on the garages. So although we're 7% above our budgeted number in the big three, most of that is coming from increases in garage revenue over what we expected from budget, which prompted my question to Forrest is why are we doing so well? I have a theory. Mr. Friedman keeps referencing 2019, but there's something different about 2019. We didn't close down Gay Street in the middle of the summer in 2019 because we didn't know what COVID was at that time. So as you look at this is one of the apps that Nick built for us. It's scraping all of our, don't go up, right there. It's scraping all of our revenue from pay by phone, kiosks, if the block has a kiosk on it. In this case, there is actually some kiosks on this portion of Gay Street downtown, and meter revenue. So it scrapes data from those three sources, compiles it by block, and I have 4 block segments, 100 East, 50 East, 50 West, 100 West Gay Street, the 4 blocks that are closed. And the chart at the bottom tells you that since January 2020, we've earned, $346,000 in meter parking revenue from those spaces. When you really start to add it all up, it really does make a big impact. And that's one thing I'm learning by looking at this information. You can see in the chart underneath it, the seasonality of it, and you can see the closures. The closure in 2020, the closure in 2021 are reflected in the little to no revenue coming from those 4 blocks. When we have Gay Street open, we're making about $18,000 a month. So my theory is that, and I have no way of absolutely verifying that, is that the people that would have parked on Gay Street are going to our garages. And you're seeing a little better performance out of our garages because of that. So going on to the last 4 slides of the presentation, I want to address an issue that'll come up later in our agenda item, having to do with a authorization for the solicitor to amend our vehicle and traffic ordinance to allow for parking meters on the 200 block of East Market. So what we did was we looked at meter usage and utilization, meaning how many cars are parked there at different times of day, to see what kind of revenue we would expect from that location. So on the 100, there you go. On the 100 block of East Market, first of all, I was surprised with this. You only have 9 parking spaces there because you only have parking on one side of the street, and you also have a really big loading zone on that block. And I want to make a point about loading zones with this information with you. However, with those 9 spaces over that same time frame that I showed you, Gay Street earned about $64,000. So we know that parking meters on on that block of East Market Street, in front of our new development there that has been that's been up for a few years, right? On 100 East Market. So I call it a new building, but I think you probably don't think of it as new, but it's sometime in the last 10 years, right? Okay.
Yeah.
There's 9 parking spaces there that total generate about $2,500 a month. That's a bunch of threes, 3,000 per space annually, or about $151 a year is generated per linear foot of your prime downtown parking space. So the next time someone comes looking for 24 feet of loading zone, please consider this fact. In a municipality that is really challenged to raise revenue from ratables because only 2/3 of our tax base is taxable. A municipality that's done really well in terms of earned income and earned income revenue, we have to look at all sources of income and revenue. It's something I'll be talking about tomorrow night. I think there's a very big subsidy coming from the parking fund to fund your annual operations. And I think we got to pay really good attention to that, not just by what we're charging for it, but by building the relationship with the business community to make sure there's reasons for people to come to the borough and to put money in our meters, because we really need that revenue coming into the parking fund to be able to fund the general fund. So the next slide talks about utilization. We have our parking officers going out and completing parking counts. So they are using their handheld devices, going out with the app, tapping in, it's geolocated and referenced to the block that they're on, and they're simply counting the amount of cars that are parked there. And it date stamps and time stamps their data entry. And we're capturing all that information and putting it into 4 timeframes: morning, afternoon, evening, and overnight. The usage on 100 East Market is definitely in the overnight, afternoon to overnight. In fact, it's a little hard to see on the sheet, but you have printouts, and I don't have my glasses, so it's a little hard for me to see too. The evening and overnight utilizations on that block of Market Street are actually over 100%. So when the officers has gone down there and counted, that means there has been a car sitting in the loading zone with its blinkers on at 8 o'clock at night, and that gets counted as 10 cars parked on the street. So it's a really popular place to stop your car, park, pay at the meter, starting in the afternoon, going through the overnight hours. Which leads me to the next slide. The proposal we'd like council to consider, which we can't do unless we enact an ordinance, would be to increase the supply of on-street metered parking in this area between Franklin Streets and Matlack Streets to 16 total spaces. We heard a complaint about daytime turnover of spaces in front of businesses that are located on the western edge of this block, and having meters would address that issue. We did a detailed survey. Actually, Hector went out and knocked on doors to find out the number of living units that were in each of the buildings to the north and south on Market Street, and we were able to account for off-street parking on all of the residential users on that block, meaning they have off-street parking spaces. And we think that adding meters to this location, the time would be ripe to do this because you're getting 219 residential units built here probably in the next 12 months after the final land developments are approved at Rubenstein's. If you don't meter these spaces, they're going to be full of cars because everybody acts rationally according to economics. If the developer is charging you $85 a month to park in their lot or whatever they're going to charge, you're obviously going to go out in the street and get it for free if you can. And right now we have free parking after midnight and 3-hour limited, no price parking on that block of 200 Market Street. So I think the time is ripe to impose some different management strategy for parking in this zone. I think it makes sense to make it a high turnover zone like our downtown. And I think that you're going to get a lot of spillover from the neighboring block, those measurements that we're taking that are 110%. When you get over 85, 90% utilization, what that really means is that somebody's coming down that block looking for a parking space and they can't find one. So your people are getting frustrated because they have to zoom around the block. Now you have somebody taking an extra right turn, spitting more carbon dioxide into your neighborhood, having a pedestrian conflict when they make that turn because they're frustrated because they didn't get the spot or whatever. Let's manage parking to the tune of, 80, 85% utilization. I think if we can get some of these cars on the 100 block of East Market to elect to park just one block down, you would increase the utilization on that 200 block of East Market. Right now, it's about 70%, and you would decrease that utilization on 100 East Market, and you would raise some revenue, which I would hazard to guess would be in the neighborhood of the neighboring block to the tune of $150 a linear foot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love it. I think we need to find more spaces. I think that we've already heard concerns about the businesses in that area, and that whole area is changing, and we need to be changing with it. I think this makes sense. I think it is part of sort of the downtown district more and more. I think this is a logical move.
The, down that area, since it's going to be revitalized with the new building, there's 10 spots there, you said, roughly?
16 total.
16
we
total, okay,
predict on
16
those new
total.
blocks.
That's key for since we're going to modernize the area, instead of putting in meters where we pay monthly fees, it would make sense to me to put a kiosk there, because there's no maintenance, it's run by electricity, we're not paying any fees, and when people leave, they're not carrying over on somebody else's dime, and the maintenance on the meters would be negligible because the kiosks, from what I remember, don't break down that much at all. And it's an $8,000 investment, if I remember correctly. It could have gone up since the last time, but the fact is it would pay for itself in 6 months, 8 months. And where the meters would pay a monthly fee and a monthly charge and a monthly everything. And we have to update them to keep them current with the 5G, 3G, 22G, whatever it is. The kiosk won't have to do that.
Madam Mayor.
Metered parking or kiosk parking in the 200 block. Then you have the 300. Then where the shift changes, where they're building the apartments at the old Rubenstein's property, and now they'll have apartments at Pinckney Hill Commons, which, is going to create people out on the street parking where there's non-metered parking there in the 400 and 500 block of East Market Street, how that is going to, what's going to happen there? Because you're going to have an influx of people that need more parking, and now it's going to affect those people. So are you going to then create more metered parking for those blocks?
To your point, Mayor, I think you're absolutely hitting it right on the spot from the entrance to the Melton Center and the Pinckney Hill right there. I don't remember, I walked there, but I don't look at the signs, whether there's no parking signs there.
You can park there.
Yes, and it's wide enough right there to park.
Right, and people do park there now.
Yeah, see, I don't,
People park there all along, but certainly they park, they'll be parking there on a consistent basis.
yeah.
Along with parking in the 400 block where Rubenstein's formerly was, where those apartment buildings will be 200 and what, 16? The numbers changed.
Yeah.
But they'll be parking right there. So.
Yeah, we understand. We're not naive to think that like the problem, it gets erased. It goes somewhere else, right? The demand goes somewhere else. And that's why we're counting utilization as part of our weekly process. So we go out and we'll count the cars. And the goal is to use as much of the available parking on the street that's there in the borough. There's a tremendous amount of capacity for parking in the borough. So if the 300, 400 blocks of East Market right now have a low utilization rate, and I could pull it up, but I won't do it right now. Then we will have, and if we put this in place, we'll keep doing the counts, and if there's a problem, we'll address it. If it gets over 80%, that becomes a parking problem. I think if you have 50, 60, 70% parking utilization, that's great. Slows the traffic down, creates a better pedestrian experience walking on East Market Street, and you're not affecting the convenience of finding parking. You really start to affect the convenience until you get over that 85, 90% number. And then you got to start doing something about it.
The street parallel to it, the 500 block of East Minor Street, which you can park on both sides, is always full. It's always full. Now, and now that some of the people are moving in, there will be more parking issues. In fact, there are parking issues on Minor Street and Poplar Street, the small little street there, because some of the neighbors actually park on our lot, with permission. But yeah.
The car's got to go somewhere, right?
Mr. Metric, my point is if we're going to start doing that, I wouldn't make investments in old meters. I would use newer technologies with kiosks, which is less maintenance and easier to turn over cars quickly and make more funding, because you can't use somebody else's thing. And we don't have a monthly maintenance fee or processing fee out of each transaction. The transaction processing fee, adds up quite a bit. So we might as well, if it's going to be a modern building there, we modernize the parking right in that area. It's far enough away from the business district that you were concerned about, I think. So.
Bernie, consistency is very important to me of experience. So I was just in Wayne and I had dinner with a friend, and they have a very specific area that has the parking kiosks, but they are all parking kiosks. There's no block of, it's not a mixed up.
The reason why we haven't done it is financially. Prior to this new council, we had $220,000 as a estimate to start removing all the single metered parking spots, because we have to pay a processing fee every time somebody puts money in that thing. And also it was 2G. So we had $200,000 in the budget that we had to take out because of COVID, because we were going to start making the kiosks to pull them out. But because we almost lost all the meters 2019 December, and Mr. Mann jumped through hoops and got, from 2G to 3G to 5G, whatever it is. And we're paying a lot of money to maintain those things. Where right in front of Sedona, we have a kiosk on both sides of Sedona, and it works very well. And we have metered parking in conjunction with it. And, so.
What I would want to see is one method for paying for parking through the entire borough, in the garages, on the streets, in the lots. Ideally, I don't think it's realistically possible, but that's what I would want. And I want to thoughtfully move towards some uniformity of when we're inviting people into our borough who are not comfortable with parking, which I'm pretty sure it's 900% of all people who live outside of this borough are not comfortable parking here. They come in, they're confused. We have different options on different areas, and it's overwhelming, and it's uninviting, it's unwelcoming.
All of our flat lots have kiosks. Okay, all of our flat lots have kiosks. The super block at the university is all kiosk. That was the thought of the previous council, to start taking block per block or area per area and eliminating the antiquated single meters.
Why did you start at the university?
Because it was a lot easier to do 10 or 12 parking spots instead of one, because those meters kept breaking down. And it would take 6 to 8 weeks to get a meter back from California. So we decided to go with the kiosks, and they don't break down. And if they do, the guy's local or the technician's local to fix it right away. So that's just the thought as we're moving down to the area.
I would love for it to be consistently kiosks, and I would love if there was a plan in place. But from what I've been told and heard, there really isn't, and I want to make sure that we're all moving in some thoughtful direction.
Only because of funding, that's all.
Mr. Metra, can you speak to the plan to replace the meters with kiosks? I vaguely remember that.
Sure, yeah, we are reducing, right, I think we started this year with, I want to say 600 single-space meters in the borough located in the central business district and in the university district. And they all needed, if we wanted to continue to use them, we needed to spend $300 shipping them to San Diego to have their motherboard replaced and be able to use a newer bandwidth for communication, because that's how the device knows whether it's somebody's dropped a coin in it and it also reports back maintenance issues and can also, that's how it also processes credit card transactions. We are reducing the number, and don't quote me on these exact numbers, but we're reducing the population of these single space meters to about 380, located exclusively in the central business district and exclusively on-street parking spaces. I would love to, change it all out to multi-space meters, but right now we have multi-space meters in all of our surface lots, and when we finish this year, we will have swapped all the university zones to multi-space meters, because I wanted a consistency of experience, to Ms. Ficara's point. And we also have a kind of inertia of past investment in that technology. I can replace way more single space meters at $300 a pop than I can effectively put kiosks downtown at $8,000 a pop. However, it might make sense when the next time those single space meters kind of cycle around and all technology goes out of date. It might make sense at that point to entertain swapping the central business district to multi-space meters. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a single way to pay and a single app to use when you make payments. Right now, we have 2 apps and 2 devices to put your money in. And at least what we're going to be, I think we're making improvements. I think at the end of this year, we still have 2 apps and we'll still have 2 payments, but we will have them zoned in a way where if you're going to an off-street parking lot, if it's your first time, it's your first time. But if it's your second time, you're going to know it's a multi-space meter. If you're a student going to campus, our thinking was, to Mr. Flynn's point, it was better geographically to do it because there's longer stretches of roadway there. You can put 1 kiosk in and between 8 to 12 spaces and get a lot of area covered for the investment. But we also thought with the population that uses university services, students, it's an age demographic that's going to be more tuned into paying by phone. And already understand how that works, unless they come from an area where they aren't used to parking like my kids.
Thank you. We good? We're gonna move on. Thank you. All right.
We did skip number B there under discussion.
We did. Let's approve the terms of agreement with Westchester Business Improvement for use and maintenance of advertising space at the Chestnut Street Garage. I'm sorry about that. Come up.
So John proposed some terms. I find them to be agreeable. This is not an agreement with the way I've drafted it. So what we would do if council, if the committee agrees with this, I can come back next month with a drafted agreement as an action item. These are the parameters of the agreement. John, you want to comment on any of this?
Just what we're looking at for the reason for possible replacement. The Public Works Department did do a good job on rehabbing the ones that sit in the Prescott Alley side on the southwestern corner of the garage. However, and I think it's just more of a design flaw for what those current placards are. There's already, you can see water damage behind them because like the cork is starting to bubble already. So I'm not fully confident that maintenance is a long-term solution and it might be better for a purchase. We don't have an exact contractor yet, so but the idea would simply be that, you know, the bid would front the money for the purchase of new placard holders on the exterior. The ones on the interior are good as of right now. And how we would reimburse that we would charge, you know, local companies is the goal, but, you know, per our solicitor, we have to open it up to any, you know, business that would want to advertise, we'd have to entertain it, a certain rate per, and we bill on a quarterly rate, as a way of reimbursing those funds. With the borough retaining, as we said here, 3 signs, that are located on Walnut Street, and then 3 that are on Chestnut Street. They have like the EV parking signs in them currently. And one of them has Super Sunday on it. It's no longer an event here. So, and I went through each of the placards. Some are, you can operate, but very few all in all. And I have a delineated list if you're wondering, but yeah, most of them are not working as of right now.
I would request that you pay attention to the materials that you choose. And then I would also request that we have a more organized system for replacing, because there's often stuff out of date on the outside or just empty.
Right. So the thought would be, and the way we structure with, you know, the ones we lease in the inside of the garage that we've always done, we do them on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months on a calendar year, the business or whoever's renting it gives us the sign towards certain specifications and material the sign has to be in, and then we hang it for them. So I'm confident that the ones that the bid leases out, that they will be changed out properly. It will be up to the borough for whether it's, you know, Parks and Recs that traditionally use that, or for whatever signage that the borough would like in there. You know, I have the keys, I can even hang it myself, but the borough would ultimately be responsible with just providing the new sign for whatever they would want to put, whatever message would want to be put in there. And it can be stored in the cage. I mean, the Market Street Print does the signs for a lot of the local stores in town. So there's a local vendor able to do it, but that's traditionally how that's kind of gotten a little out of date, have been more on the signs the borough has kept, though the EV signs are a little newer.
I'm all for you being in charge of this. So thank you.
And just from our perspective, once we do have more of a formal agreement between our solicitors, the bids board will have to just approve that. So you'll double dip on that point, but there you go.
All good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay on track. 4 are the action items. Approve the July 2022 Parking Committee meeting minutes.
Approved.
Approved. Approve amendment to the Bicentennial Garage Lease Agreement between Westchester Borough and Eclat Chocolate to alter the terms and conditions of the option term.
So we did talk again to the proprietor, and it's a real simple answer. I got the answer that I told you last month too, which is he's just looking for some more flexibility in his current lease. And that was the extent of what I got out of him.
I met with Chris. He's very interested in staying in the borough is what he told me. He wants some more flexibility. He wants to feel, I think, a little more heard. We are his landlords. I love his business being there. I am all for doing this.
I don't have any concerns. I mean, I had questions last month, but, you know, I've since learned, to your point, that, I mean, I think he plans on staying. And I'm not sure that we have any insight into maybe what his previous concerns were that he feels were not addressed. Do you, Mr. Flynn?
And
That's what comes when you're here too long. The previous concerns were the roof was leaking, number one, going down the facade. The air conditioner, the air conditioning contractor couldn't get the air conditioning to stay, so the chocolate wouldn't melt properly. So we did a lot of maintenance and upgrading of the air conditioning. The tree in front of his building was dead for 3 years, and no one removed the tree. So, I mean, that was some of the concerns, and we have fixed all three of them. Okay, so that's the, when someone tells me they want flexibility, that tells me that I'm not as optimistic as the two of you. I think he just wants another year at the same rate, and then I personally think that he may not be here, but there's nothing you could do about someone leaving or staying. So I think I did a mathematical equation for Mr. Metric. I think it was like $683. If I remember correctly, it was a while ago that I did it. $683 roughly doesn't hurt or help us one way or the other.
What is it, 683?
The difference between the new contract and the existing contract,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the long run, it may make him stay, may not make him, just give him flexibility. So he's a paying tenant. He does a great job paying his bill. So,
in seeing what is happening with the Gay Street shutdown and how we move forward with our downtown district. I think he's very curious to see how we move forward, basically. So
we lose more money on Gay Street shutdown for the meters than we will losing on his rent for a year. So it's really a non-issue.
No concerns, Mr. Caro. I'm good with it.
all right, so we're going to go ahead with that. C is authorize the solicitor to amend Chapter 77 Parking Program Residential to remove all references to parking stickers and associated costs, guest cards and associated costs, and special business cards and associated costs from the entire ordinance. Remove the following holidays from Section 7722, definitions, holidays, Columbus Day, General Election Day, Veterans Day, schedule a hearing date attached.
C and D are just cleanup ordinances.
All right, D's authorize more or change the direction of 224 Biddle Street from north to west. Ordinance number 12, 2015, schedule a hearing date. E is authorize the solicitor to amend Chapter 104 to add parking meters to the 200 block of East Market, schedule a hearing date. And F, authorize the solicitor to amend Chapter 104-45, special purpose parking zones established, parking otherwise prohibited, to add a handicap parking space at 508 East Minor Street.
So last month, the resident from Minor Street, 500 block of Minor Street, she submitted a request to have a handicap sign erected in front of her residence. She uses a cane. She submitted a placard, the ID card that's required, and the registration to the vehicle. So that's it.
Are there any other handicap
That's
spaces?
one, that's it. If this one's approved, it'll be 2 for the block. That's all.
And we're okay with that?
Yes.
I'm okay with Other business? Then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.